Tape Deck Media.
I'm Chris Chapman.
And I'm Aaron Fresquez.
I'm Joseph Beck Castro.
Cool. And together, we produce a comedy podcast about the films of Arnold Schwarzenegger called See You at the Potty, Richter.
See you at the party, Richter. Like that. You need to say it with accent.
Yeah, come on. Don't you know accents?
That's not Arnold Schwarzenegger accent. This is a Schwarzenegger accent.
It's an accent, sure. Anyway, listen each month as we take you through Arnold's career, one movie at a time. For each movie, we'll explain the plot, discover some fascinating trivia about its production and promotion, and rate the film on its quintessential Arnoldness.
That's what we do. That's what we do.
That is Joe's accent is a lot better than my accent.
We know you have a lot of choices in the comedy deep dive into the filmography of the world's most charismatic bodybuilder genre of podcasts, but please consider giving us a shot.
Come on, do it now. Do it. Subscribe.
Ruddle me this, ruddle me that. We got the riddles that'll make you chat. Oh yeah, baseline stuff been through this tight. Get your funk on, we're rocking tonight. One more time.
Good morning, Ruddlers and Ruddle Maniacs around the world. Welcome back to another episode of Ruddle Me This. I am, as always, your host, Taylor Caro Bear Hoss Ruddle. Okay, so a little context for that one. If you ever watch the anime Card Captors, there's a character in it called Keroberos. I think it's a Japanese pronunciation of Cerberus from Greek mythology. But look, I'm running out of ideas for these fucking nicknames. I think in my wrap up for the end of the year, I'm just going to record me saying through all of them. Started on episode 33, we're approaching episode 100 now, and I got no ideas. So I'm gonna do the nickname thing till 100, and I'm gonna retire it. I'm out of ideas. I have no more ideas for the nickname. So okay, let's get on with the episode. So welcome along. Hope you've had a good weekend. Hope you got some cool stuff coming up this week. We are closing in on the end of the year. Just another month to go until Christmas time. Today's interview is a really interesting one. I got in touch with my guest coming up, Emily, from, so the whole chat we do is about Emily's kind of journey in general. We apparently lived very parallel lives. We're in similar fields. Both went to Japan at the similar times, and we're both people of many hats. So it was a good chat. But I got put in touch with Emily through Kowhai Fan Fest, which is an anime convention that's being held in Christchurch. I think it started in 2020 or 21. We mention it in the podcast. And I got in touch with them a couple of weeks ago, maybe a little bit longer, and I asked if I could volunteer to do any hosting or anything like that. And it sounds like I'm going to be there in 2025, which is on the 18th of January. It is going to be at I cannot remember the correct name for it, the Hallsville Events Centre or the Hallsville Library. Just check the website for the correct information. I think Henry Hickman and myself, we have applied to do a niche comedy performance as the Geeky Blinders, and we're going to do some anime and some sort of pop culture-y jokes. So it only costs about $10 to get into the fest. So on top of coming out to see us tell some jokes, you could also just enjoy a fantastic anime convention. And it sounds like they are going for a grassroots kind of approach. Like, I don't really have a dog in the fight, but it's from what I hear from people, sounds like the bigger conventions are getting a little too commercialized. They're kind of maybe a little too big. They are resorting to drop-shipped merchandise, that kind of thing. Again, I don't know, and I don't want to burn any of those bridges before I've walked across them. So, but it sounds like Kowhai Fan Fest, their heart's in the right place. They are doing grassroots, community-based. Sounds like they're listening to what the community wants, and they're kind of adjusting it based on that. The numbers, it sounds like they're doing really well. They've basically doubled their attendance, I think, the last couple of years, so it should be a really, really cool event. So I got put in touch with Emily through that, or Ems, as she sometimes goes, and yeah, she's basically just a guest on the podcast. We talked about her journey, what she's been up to, leading her to this point. And, of course, we talk about the Kowhai Fan Fest. So with that all out of the way, let's get on with the interview. Please welcome to the show, Emily from Kowhai Fan Fest. Hello, Ems. Welcome to, we're in your studio, but you're going to be a guest on my podcast. Thank you for taking a bit of time out of your day.
That's all right. Thanks for having me.
So I was quite excited to talk to you because we were just excited to meet anybody else that's into some of the same stuff I grew up on, anime and that kind of thing. But what was really cool is how we got sort of started here is I think I'm going to be helping a little bit with the Kowhai Fan Fest in 2025. I was also talking to, I'm not sure who the person who runs the Instagram account. Is that you or is that someone else?
It'll be Kai for the most part. It could have been Bridget. There's a few of us. I used to, but it's like the messaging part of it's quite
overwhelming
it's
at times, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to do, me and another comic, we're going to do a little bit of very nerdy stand-up comedy. And then I think I'm also going to give a bit of, I'm going to host a couple of things on the main stage just to give the main MC a bit of a break at times. So through that, we got in touch. And I think you are you like the communications person for Kowhai Fan Fest?
Yeah, so design and marketing. So that's marketing stuff.
Yeah.
Most of the print type stuff and anything visual essentially. So I used to run mostly the social media, but Kai and I are now sharing it. So they'll do like the DMs and things and help with posting stuff, and I will still do most of the graphics. I'm just trying to find someone who can actually work with the software that I work with, because I like my design software because you can get really granular with it.
So you have you got a history in graphic design as well?
Yeah, so I'm a trained graphic designer. I've been doing it for probably
too.
10 to 13 years probably at this point.
Did you also study at UB?
No, I was at Design and Arts College, which
you're a proper designer.
Followed. No.
No, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
How was your UB experience? Was that fun?
Oh, so I had the weirdest UB experience. It
was Nat Cole when you went, right?
Yes, it was Nat Cole back then, and then we were also on day 3, I think, when the Christchurch earthquake happened. So where were we? We were on, I can't even remember the street now. It's somewhere kind of close to not Hereford Street, High Street. And the only thing I remember is that Calendar Girls, which is a strip club, was right across from our front door for the
Was that
and
what
also,
it used to be?
Yeah, and Calendar Girls was the only building that survived from that block. I think it was so weird. You'd see all this rubble and then just this pristine Calendar Girls. But anyway, we were in this weird sort of limbo because a bunch of buildings fell down, so a lot of places didn't have somewhere to study. But then there were other, we were sort of renting some space at a Korean golf and business school out in the kind of north side of town, and so we had a very odd year. We'd learnt it all and got through it, but it took about 2 years, because I think you were you in Christchurch when the quake happened?
No, so I moved here 2013.
Oh yeah, so it would have been fresh.
A year and a bit. So it was still container city, a lot of rubble. It was pretty, but it's been cool to watch it regrow. I think that's been the awesome thing of I remember what this used to look like, and it's starting to feel like a city again, which is really cool.
Yeah. So then it was weird that sort of 9 months after the earthquake happened, life went on, but it was much slower, and it was it was a very sort of purgatory limbo thing. But I don't know. Yeah, it's we got through it in the end. How was your studying experience were you at DNA or whatever it's called?
Yeah, so DNA moved into a building not far from the hospital on Cambridge Terrace, Fulham Street.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was tourism for some little while. It was a really cool building though, because we had, of course, architecture was on the top floor, which had the nice balcony and whatever. And then you had fashion in between, and then we were on the first floor.
Awesome.
But yeah, a really cool place to be. It was kind of the perfect. Like I knew I was going to that college since I was like, it's been like year 7, year 8, because of all their ads and stuff, and it just really spoke to me. So I knew from that time onwards that I was going to move to Christchurch and do the course. So like when I got accepted, it was like the biggest achievement of my life at the time.
Yeah. Awesome.
And I had like a full portfolio and stuff, and I'd already done like a few design internships. So, but I
Wow.
loved it. It was practical. Thank God the cohort I was into was a 12 o'clock start, so they had a morning class and an afternoon.
I love that.
So I
Yeah.
lucked out there. I totally lucked out. It was 4-hour classes. It was very hands on. The tutors were amazing, and it was rolling years too. So it actually took me. It would have taken me a year and a half to do a 2-year course.
Wow.
And then I did a bridging course, which was a double diploma in arts on top of that. Because I didn't really want to go into work yet. I was like, I kind of want to study a bit more of like the theory and
Yeah.
just get a bit
Yeah.
more experience. But the arts course was very eye opening. I learned that I am a designer. I am not an art student.
Oh, that's funny.
They
Yeah.
are. I was like, this is like art philosophy crap, and like I wasn't
Yeah.
really into that sort of stuff, the theory and the history of art and like dissecting art throughout the ages and stuff. I was like, this is just
Mm.
BS. And like, no offense to the people I was with, but they were just a little bit too far down the activist route, and they all kind of were like, my art's about feminism, and my art's
Mm.
about environmental science, and my art's about something
Mm.
else. And it was like, this is kind of not really my. I just want to draw cute little anime pictures and
I feel
design
like,
cool stuff.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think that is a very, very common experience, because that was one of the first things they asked us at NatCol was like, what is the difference between art and design? And most of us didn't
Mm.
really know, but
Yeah.
I think we distilled it down to like, well, design is generally for someone else, you know, like it has a purpose to it, whereas art
Yes.
can just be or something. I think that was
Yeah.
kind of where we got to it.
The way I described it is art in terms of like traditional art, which is like the stuff you see in museums and sculpture
Mhm.
and painting, and it's kind of abstract and stuff. That so the difference between that and design is you make art for yourself and you do design for other people. And
Yeah, I
it's
think,
like you're a
yeah.
commercial artist, or you're a commercial designer, or you're a artist, which I think you need both. It's just whichever route you decide to
Yeah,
dive
100%. You
into.
can, I think you can sort of do both as well. So that's cool. Did you work for any kind of notable companies or anything like that that you're okay with talking about in public? Because
So
keep
I've had
my
a
sort
really
of, yeah.
yeah, I've had a really strange career. So I was lucky to get a job that was taking up someone's maternity leave for the first
Oh, me too. That was my first proper design job too.
yeah, yeah. So I worked for like an online e-commerce company, and because it was a 6-month thing, I decided to do my OE once it finished. So I went to Japan for about 2 months and came back. I did a bit of hospo. I went back to the same job, even though I was like, this kind of sucked. It was
Mm,
boring. I didn't like it. So I went back, and I said when I started, I was like, well, I started back. I was like, I didn't. There was things that weren't quite right.
mm.
And
It's
she's
not
like,
going
no,
to
no,
be
no,
a
we
forever job
changed.
kind of thing.
Yeah, she was like, no, no, we changed a lot of those processes. It'll be fine.
I've
And
heard that one before.
yeah, and the busiest period was Christmas, and
Mhm.
I was done with it. I was like, this sucks. So I just happened to
Yeah.
find another job, and got screamed out of the boss's office. And
God.
yeah, great way to start your career. But then
Oh,
I
it is,
found an
isn't it?
incredible job working for St. John,
Oh, cool.
as in like ambulance, and that
Yeah,
was
I'm
great.
familiar.
Amazing first job to second job to get. Then after 2 years I went to Japan for 9 months and did my OE there. I came back, I did my bachelor degree in design communications, and then worked for NV, which is a design and web company. So NV is probably
Wow.
like the biggest profile one, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I've
20,
heard of Envy. Do they do Hell
yeah.
Pizza and stuff like that, or is that a different one? That might be Inject I'm thinking of. I've definitely heard of
No,
Envy.
they do it like a bunch of I don't know, there's a couple of we call it government contracts.
Mhm.
There's a few bit of e-commerce stuff. Yeah, it's
Awesome.
web and app type stuff. But
Cool. So
yeah.
then your Japan trips, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but I lived there for 3 years between
Oh, cool.
2015
14 and 18, I think. I had a bit of a gap when I was figuring out visa stuff, but about 3 years all up. Yeah.
Yes.
What was your experience like there? How did you find it?
Well, the first 2 months so back in 2016, I would have gone. I was there on holiday and I did
Mhm.
like a bunch of traveling, and then I really wanted to try and get a feel for like the everyday life experience. So I lived in a like a giant share house, if you kind of know what that
Yeah,
is, where
yeah,
it's
I
like a
lived in one
shared
of those too.
kitchen.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
Wow, we have very
And that was a
parallel.
ton of, yeah, it was a ton of fun. So I was
Yeah,
like,
I
oh,
love
this
it.
is really cool. And like, it was always my dream to go and live in Japan. So, um,
Awesome.
yeah, I finally bit the bullet, but it was probably the toughest experience and the most like growing experience of my life. Like
Because
the
how
work
old
culture was,
you
I
would
would
have
have
been like
been,
what?
when did I go? I went in the end of 2018. So I was 25 in
Yeah,
2019. Yeah.
that's a good age to
So
go though, I think.
yeah, it was, I don't recommend it, but I
Really.
also recommend it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's 50-50. I
I,
think you have to experience it to know it,
I
right?
know exactly what you mean. Like just the frustration. Because did you speak any Japanese when you went?
Yeah, so I studied for about 5 years in high school and then
Oh, yeah. Okay, so you were a lot
grew
better than I was.
I grew conversational over a number of
uh,
meetings and trips and stuff, so that was good.
oh, awesome. Yeah, no, that was my biggest hurdle was just that I couldn't get my head around the language for the first year, and
Yeah.
I remember I had this real clear moment where I was just like, man, how do like I was struggling to communicate with a store person. I just thought like, how do we not even get the gist of what the other person is saying? Like, not even just a little glimmer. It's that different of a language, and so, but yeah, once you learn, it becomes a lot easier. So I imagine that yeah, that was an interesting hurdle. What were some of the things that you found kind of like challenging about aside from the language over there?
I think it's just the lifestyle really. Like it's a very much a work hard, play hard type culture,
Mm.
which is because I was living in Tokyo, obviously because it's
Oh
kind of the
yeah,
easiest place to go.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was. I I think I knew pretty early on that for me the typical job structure was not going to work, and so I kind of I went over mostly freelancing, and I did pick up a lot of freelancer work, which was fantastic. And I got to do some cool things with some really cool people. But obviously, to get visa, you kind of need a job. So, I
Hmm.
went down the whole job rabbit hole. And the
Yep.
one and only job contract that I had pretty much fired me after like not even like 8 weeks. Because
Really.
she had just she was a foreigner from the UK, but she had such a rigid way of working. It was like
Mm.
no phones, no headphones, which is
Oh,
mad.
yeah.
You had to be there exactly on time, which is like I think
Ah.
that's a total bullshit. Um, yeah, she was like keeping
Oh
time and shit. I
no.
don't know. It
Yeah,
was
that
not my
is
thing.
that. I'm gonna say that probably sounds like she might have been the exception to the rule there, but because I remember before I left, I sort of because I was working at a little sort of apps studio towards the end of my tenure there, and
Oh,
so
nice.
we did kind of run into people in that kind of web development field, and like I always felt that they were quite quite a lot worldlier than a lot of the average people because
Mm,
I think because the internet is such an international thing, they had
yeah,
kind of exposure to the rest of the world a lot more than I think the typical person generally did, but.
yeah.
Um, I was always curious as to what their work-life balance would have been like in those artsier kind of jobs. I never really got to find out, but
Yeah.
I had
It
hoped that
it
it would be a
was
little easier.
it's definitely company by company. There are
Yeah.
some, especially the foreigner run ones, especially in like the tech and the startup space. They're much more like Silicon Valley style,
Mm.
which has its own merits and downfalls. But I
Yeah.
much preferred that style of like
Yeah.
get the work done. It doesn't matter, like just
Yeah.
get it done. And that's my style. Is like if you give me a project, I will be in it. I will complete it to the best standard
Mm.
if you allow me to work the way that I work. If you don't, then fit me into a box and I'll hate you for the rest of my life, basically.
Yeah, I think do you sort of I really hate sort of I guess like wasted efforts. Like I remember really struggling with I was creating a video for something. It was I think we were doing some work for some traditional Chinese medicine. I think kanbo, is that the right word for that kind of thing? Those like acupuncture and reflexology and all that sort
Yeah,
of thing.
Could be.
Um,
My specific Japanese knowledge is.
yeah. And I remember the people that we were sending it to wanted to see the entire video finished before they give their thoughts on it. And I was trying to get
Yeah.
even just know, like, is this in the right direction that you're heading for? And they would be like, oh, we can't really tell unless we. And it's like, it's going to be such a waste of time if I have to then redo everything. And like, we were really clashing there. And I remember just thinking, yeah, maybe this is not for me. This kind of client, designer relationship. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think, but like you say, mixed bag, right? And even over here, I've had some of the same bullshit from clients and everything.
Oh yeah, like it's business per business, and everyone has a different
Mm,
philosophy of how they run things, and I think that's just where I differ. Like I
mm,
don't like being ruled by other people.
yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what kind of you were an anime fan growing up?
Oh hell yeah, yeah yeah.
What
That's pretty much
what were
how I got
your
into Japanese culture.
yeah, I think it's very common. What were your kind of favorites growing up?
um, it was Kakebe Sakura,
Hmm.
the English dubbed version. Actually, no, it's Canadian dubbed, I think.
Oh wow.
And Digimon, the
Nice.
the Fox Kids version or whatever it
Uh-huh.
was. But still to this day, they are my two absolute favorite. And then there's like the classics like your Dragon Ball Z and the Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon. But those two were pivotal to pretty much my entire life. I
Yeah.
have a drawing of Sakura. I can even see like 2 or 3 that I've drawn. Because I did this in my bachelor's. They did like a reflection of how design was part of your life. I
Mhm.
have a drawing of Sakura pretty much every year since like till about, I don't know, the age of 25, 26
Wow.
maybe. Yeah.
Ones that you had done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
Yeah. So I got to do like a little time of like my drawing
that's cool.
what do you call it, skill, like of developing through one
Yeah.
character, which
Yeah.
is like probably very rare, but it's pretty cool.
I watch a YouTuber who does pixel art, and every year he does a new Luke Skywalker pixel art, and so he has a
Oh
kind
yeah.
of same. It's the same thing. He can track his progress, and he's hit the
Yeah.
point now where he's like, he doesn't feel like he's necessarily getting any better. It's more like what he can get experimental, and so the style changes each time, and it's a cool project.
Yeah.
I wish I had the foresight to do something like that, but
Yeah.
alas, here we are.
Yeah.
I was going to say as well, a video game. Were you in much into video games as well?
Yep, my video game experience. I think we got our first. I think we started with the Xbox in terms of our family.
Yeah.
So it was Halo, and still is
Oh wow.
probably one of my favorite video games. So I was probably like 6 years old, but I watched my brothers play it for a long time, and then they finally let me play. So I am like a first-person shooter style.
Wow.
But the story of Halo is what hooked me. I was like, this is so fucking good.
It's quite
Until maybe
compelling,
like
eh?
the later ones, but the history of Halo is fascinating, and like all the books and the lore that they did around it as well. It's really cool.
The thing about Halo as well is I don't know if people don't realize this or not, but that so many games aped that game and copied stuff from
Yep,
it. Like up until
yep.
that point, I'm trying to think what was the biggest shooter up until Halo. It might have been that James Bond one on the on the game. When it
It
was,
would
it
have
was
been
the
it probably would have been Doom, right? The
yeah
Doom
Doom, Wolfenstein,
in yeah,
maybe Call of Duty, but I'm not quite sure when Call of Duty came out. But
yeah,
yeah, Halo was like everyone saw the health, the recharging health thing, and they were like, "That's
yeah,
that's great. That's what we want." And
and like the
um,
breadth of weapons as well, and
mhm,
oh
yeah, I remember as well. I was trying to explain to a younger cousin of mine what online gaming was like before now, where a lot of games have online. And I know it was like Halo, and then one of the Ratchet and Clank games was like the two.
yeah,
They were the two like arenas that people would I think it was Ratchet and Clank 3. That was the one that everyone could play online. And I don't remember how you used to do it. I think you had to buy something extra to plug into your PlayStation to connect to the internet or something. But
yeah,
um, those were the two that you'd always hear about people playing at like LAN parties and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah.
Um, what else can we'll just get onto the Kowhai Fan Fest, I guess, stuff. So, how long has the Kowhai Fan Fest been around for? Like, I can remember about 3 years ago, but I'm guessing it's been around a bit longer than that.
Yeah, so the idea was born out of frustration, I think. So, I got into the cosplay community probably around 2016, and eventually met a few people in the space. And Bridget was one of the people I met. Turns out we went to the same high school. Once I found out what her last name was, I knew who she was because it's a very
Really?
prominent it's a very specific last name. And I knew that they did like a bunch of band stuff and things. So we reconnected and I was like, I know who you are. And she's like, I don't know who you are. But we went to the same high school about 2 years apart. And she was very much into the cosplay scene, but her whole thing is community. Like she's very much about community, safe spaces, and creating something that works for, I guess, the people. So there are a lot of experiences and frustration with a couple of other events. She's like, nah, we're doing our own thing. And she knew I had a design experience. So she's like, I'm going to really need your help with marketing. And I was like 100% on board. I had, ideas and things. And so we had our first event in 2021, which was entirely community funded, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And still is.
That's right. I think that tends to be a very common origin story to a lot of these kind of events. Like, you see it in the stand-up comedy world as well. People, basically the same as you, expressing frustration in the status quo, not quite happy with the way things are being run. So they think, well, someone's got to do it, so I'll have a go. And it just all kind of goes from there. I was going to say as well, I'm trying to think of what the kind of landscape of events like that are in New Zealand. So like you obviously have the Armageddon Expo, which is probably the biggest one. There was Overload, which I did a little bit of the MC stuff for them a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah, I went to one, but you might have crossed paths.
Quite possibly, yeah. Were you doing something on the main stage?
Was it my first time going? Yeah, it was my first time going, so I was volunteering at the time, which was quite a fun experience because we'd done one or two Kowhais at that point, maybe.
Yeah.
So it was a good sort of thing of like, how do they run things and like what's the environment like? But they're a really well respected con around the country, and they've been going for ages.
Yeah, because it's they also, or is it? I'm not quite sure the structure of it, but Seong is the kind of I don't know, the director or something, right? Is that the correct word for what he does? Yeah.
I think so. He's very prominent in the sort of Japanese media space in terms of like here in New Zealand.
Really?
If it's the person I'm thinking of, yeah.
Yeah, he also I think does something with Japan Fiesta, and is that another con, or is that more like a general Japan thing?
It's so the history of that is that it's the same people that run Overload, and they wanted to bring it to Christchurch. But we used to have Japan Day, which was like a March event where it was about culture, and there's a ton of really cool things. But through COVID, I think they pretty much lost all of their sponsorships, and they had some pretty big sponsors, so they couldn't run the event, which meant that Overload were like, well, we could fill that gap. We've got the resources to do it. And now they do I think it's even like 2 times a year that they're planning to do it, which is
I think Overload
nuts.
was the same. The year that I went up, they just did one, but then they were planning one for like 6 months in the future.
Yeah.
And it's 3 of them who run it mainly, I think. That just seems so exhausting. Like the day we went in the day before, because I had to get I forget, I had to maybe do a sound check or something, and I think I severely underestimated the scale of that operation, because I thought, oh yeah, it's an anime con, like, we'll roll up and it'll be pretty chill or whatever. But then when you actually get in there, there's like forklifts and scissor lifts, and people are bringing, like, what is that that car movement? They're called like itasha or something like that, and it's like these really, really anime
the
cars,
anime covered cars. Yeah, they're cool.
What is itasha means, like cringe car or something, or pain. I think Ita would be like from
Itai. The painful looking car, pretty much.
Yeah, and so there's those things, these pristine cars getting wheeled in, and I remember just being like, "Oh, okay." I didn't realize the gravity of what I've just walked into, but and then they were talking about doing it again in 6 months, and I thought, "Oh, you guys are gonna be dead." Like, you're not.
Well,
They've
they've done it for, I think they had their 20th or 25th anniversary not too long ago.
Wow.
So they've been doing it a really long time. Or maybe it's 15 years. I could be wrong.
Mm.
So they've done it for enough time in pretty much the same space, and they've grown it so that it's kind of like Armageddon, right? They do it across the country, and they've done it enough times that they kind of know what they're getting into
Yeah.
at this point. But for us, we've done 2, and we're on to
Yeah.
our 3rd. So
Yeah.
there's a lot that we've learned even just in 2 conventions.
Yeah,
so.
I'm curious, what are some of the things that jumped out at you after the first sort of couple?
So the first one we did at Turanga, which is Christchurch City Library,
Mhm.
and it's all council run and council based, so it's pretty cheap.
Mhm.
We did it without tickets just to keep things. Well, we did tickets, but it was free, in a very very small space. So very quickly we figured out that we needed to. I think we sold out in tickets as well. Figured out
Wow.
very quickly we needed to increase the space, but what we
Yeah.
were hoping to increase it to in terms of capacity, there are very few venues here in Christchurch that cater to that. There's kind of like a 100 to 300 maybe max capacity venues, and then from there it's like 800 plus,
Yeah.
which is, and then the price also is massive because you have
Uh-huh.
to go commercial at that point.
Yeah.
So the second time we went out to Christchurch Uni, and it was not the best experience, but it is a fantastic venue.
Mm.
So we learned a lot,
Yeah.
and
And then where is it
it's good to learn
gonna
those
be?
experiences.
Yeah. Where is it being held the next year? Or 25?
So yep, so next year in January we're doing it out in Hallswell at the, I think it's Te Hapua, which
Okay.
is the Hallswell Library. So it's another council venue, but it's just the right size for us, that we can expand. And because it's council rates, we're hoping we can actually make some profit this time, which means we can start to put deposits on the venue, which is the biggest cost for us, is always the venue.
Yeah,
It's like
absolutely.
half, if not 2/3 of our budget.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's mad because we've through running stand up and things, I've again, much like you, had this issue of like the numbers are slightly different. For me, it's like you can find a bar that would maybe give you like 30 seats, and that's okay. But then if you want to go up from that to like 40 or 50 seats, there's no options really. And then the next biggest option is like the Isaac Theatre or something,
Yeah.
or the piano or something. And you're like, this
Yeah.
is massive. Like, there's no way I can sell all these tickets. So there's
Yeah.
that gulf of these mid-size. Like, I wish we just had like a mid-sized black box theatre in Christchurch. I honestly
Yeah.
think they would make a killing just from like these kind of medium level comics. But I don't know. No one's done it just yet. But what sort of attendance are you expecting? What's your capacity at the Hallswell Te Hapua? Is that what it's called? Sorry.
Yeah, so our capacity at Tapua, I think, is 400 to 500,
Oh yeah.
maybe, which is a pretty good size.
Yeah, no,
Our
that's
last
huge.
one, we had a capacity of, I think it was 800 possibly,
Yeah.
and we got up to, maybe it was 600, I'm not sure. I think we got in the end with door sales is about 450 people
Wow.
throughout the
That's
door. So
crazy.
we went from I think we were about like 250, 300 the first event, and then we got to 450. So we're growing pretty quickly.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Hopefully if we sell out of this one, then we're looking pretty good.
That's the most satisfying thing, is to put sold out onto an event. Is like, as someone who runs events, you're just like, yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, are there any other, because there's Armageddon and Overload and then Japan Fiesta. I know there was a guy starting one in like, it was like Timaru or somewhere around there. I honestly cannot for the life of me remember what it was called, but I saw it was a bunch of TikToks. I think he opened
Yeah.
like a space that was for, seemed like sort of half kind of comic book arcade and half kind of like youth center maybe. Is
yeah.
that a con or something that you're aware of at all?
Possibly. We know there's quite a few small ones around. Once Armageddon pulled out of Dunedin, there was one that sort of filled in the gap. I'm not sure if they're still going though.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So there's a few little small ones that are popping up, but and there's one in Wellington actually,
Mhm.
GGWP, which is a bit more game focused, and they're
Oh,
friends
cool.
of ours. So we're kind of like sister cons, because we started around the
Yeah.
same time, same sort of vision, which is pretty cool.
Awesome. Oh, that's very cool. It's cool to see that these things are picking up steam, because like obviously there's people are interested in that kind of thing, and
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how how this nerdy stand-up comedy that I'm thinking is going to go down because like there's obviously no way I can test it until the fest because it'll be too niche for the average
Yeah.
punter at a thing. So
That's kind of our thing though, is like if you've got like a slightly more niche thing, like
mhm,
it's a very safe space to try out that sort of stuff. And it's a
mhm.
small enough audience that and it's the
Yeah,
like the community that we've built is so supportive. Every
yeah.
single time they've been very, very supportive of us. So it's cool.
Yeah, when I was hosting the one up in Overload, I remember being like I've been big shocked that I was not receiving resistance from the audience for referencing nerdy stuff. Like I was trying to explain to them the level of clap that we want from them, and I was, the classic thing of like you raise your hand to this level and that, and so I was using the different levels of Super Saiyan as my
Yeah.
example, like
That's
and I
perfect.
said it, and they all just were like nodding and like with me, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. I've never had to like not explain something to an audience like that before, so I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to that respect. I've also just been wanting to use something to do with the One Piece, like the treasure of the One Piece, in a
Oh
joke. So
yeah.
I think if there was ever a chance, it's going to be this at this next one there. But no, I'm looking forward to that. I was going to say as well, like this is a hard thing for me. I hate. Well, it's not exactly you, so it might be easy to do. But I guess if you were to tell someone just like in a bit of a quick elevator pitch as to your sort of like, I guess your universal selling point, or like what Kowhai is doing differently to the cons that you'd seen around that like might help you find your people a little bit. Did you have any kind of examples of just like stuff that you are doing differently based on what you kind of didn't like in the industry that my listeners might hear it and go, "Yep, that's me right there."
I think we're always gonna have cosplay at the center of because and like creative arts is always the center of what we do, and hopefully it's always going to be community based and community run. I think that's the biggest thing is that we listen to feedback from the community, we implement it as much as we can, and we're always going to keep it accessible to people that are new vendors or new exhibitors in like the art space, and so we're trying to keep like prices low and make it as accessible as possible.
Mm. I do the same with my stand up as I try to keep the tickets like affordable. Um, this is interesting. You may not have an answer for this, but is there any feedback that you've received in the few years from someone that you were surprised to receive? Good or bad, you know what I mean?
Uh,
Like just yeah.
Feedback from someone.
Yeah, just from like either someone who's attended the con or from the community or just like a request from someone in the community that you were like, oh, okay.
Yeah, actually, Japan Fiesta, I don't know if we reached out to them initially or if they reached out to us, but they knew we were in Christchurch and running stuff. So and they're from, I think most of them are from Auckland, at least
Mhm.
the management team. They reached out to us and said, hey, do you want to be part of this? And we
Oh,
were like, that would be fantastic. And they said, you can have the space for free. So you
wow.
can fundraise. So we were like, hell yeah, we'll take that. And we'd always wanted to incorporate a cosplay cafe into the Kowhai
Cool.
scene because it's done really, really well over in Australia at some of the cons there. So we've run 3 cosplay cafes in the 3 or so events that they've done and made some really good profit from that or fundraising, which is fantastic. But they have, every time they've called us back, they've been like, this was fantastic. You guys like fill a need for us and
Yeah.
you always bring a lot of experience and you know the community really well. So that's been amazing that they keep coming back and like, can we please have you again?
Yeah.
And really surprisingly, and I think you probably understand this as like it's a very Japanese thing, but they wrote us a letter of recommendation, which is very like we didn't ask for it. They were just
Yeah.
like, hey, you guys have been amazing. Here's a little recommendation if you ever need it. So
Yeah.
it's been
Oh,
like
that's
the
brilliant.
biggest praise and like yeah, that's cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. So when you say this was something that I saw being advertised at Overload, but I don't, I think I only maybe 80% understand it. Is it like, let's say if you're cosplaying as like, uh, let's say like Naruto or something, would it be like you bring the food and drinks to the person's table and you're sort of like in character as Naruto? Like, how does something like that work?
Yes. Yeah,
Mm,
so Overload, I'm not sure what they've done recently, but the one that I went to, it was Genshin, because Genshin's, was massive, probably
They had
still
a
is.
voice actress, yeah, from Genshin Impact
Yeah.
there.
And so it was a bunch of people in cosplay, and like the food was I don't know if the food was tailored to it. But yeah, it was very much I think it was maybe the first one that they did. So there was a bit of it was very simple in the approach, but if you know anything
Yeah.
about like Japanese maid cafes,
I was
it's
gonna say,
kind
is
of
it?
like
Yeah,
that, but less cringy and weird.
yeah. Gosh, we went. I don't know if I'll tell the story, but we went to a Hooters, which was like not something I'd seen in Japan, and like
Oh.
it was for lunch. We didn't go for like. Well, actually, I don't know. I wasn't there for creepy reasons, but I don't know what whoever decided to go there maybe was, but and it was like either the first day they had been open or it was the first week. It was very very new, and we went in there and we're kind of just having lunch or something, and then I guess like every hour or at certain amounts of times they all the staff come out and do like a song, and they were like clapping and trying to encourage us to like dance with them, and I'm like, what's going on? Like it sort of all just happened so quickly, and I wasn't really sure how to react, and had no idea what they were singing. I think maybe they have some stock songs in the American Hooters or something like that, but it was a bizarre experience, and I not one I was keen to go back and do again. But yeah, the themed sort of maid cafe stuff like that. Like, have you ever seen those muscle cafes or muscle bars over there?
No, I didn't think I saw a lot of classic maid cafe.
Yeah,
Maybe the odd butler cafe as well.
yeah,
I
yeah.
knew someone who actually worked. He was a foreigner who worked in a butler cafe, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's kind of cool."
A good friend of mine was a bit like that. He just before he left, he needed a bit of extra money, and he's like and he's a fit guy, quite in good shape. And he went to one of these muscle cafe or muscle bars, and yeah, he had to pour drinks for people and stuff. But then customers could also buy like I don't know what it's called, but when like the groom will carry the bride over the threshold,
Oh yeah,
whatever that
yeah,
like
yeah.
they could they could buy him to like pick them up like that, or he would like flex his bicep and they could like hang off it kind of thing and all that sort of thing, and like it
Oh,
was, yeah, I don't know if he enjoyed it or not, but I'm sure he got some stories out of that job.
oh yeah, yeah. No, it's a very interesting culture over there. I personally appreciate maid cafes, and I understand their existence and why they exist, but my partner he refused to go in with me. I've always wanted to, but he was like,
Yeah.
hell no, I'm not going to something like that. It's weird and creepy and it's fetish. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's cute and adorable. And like, for me, it's cosplay, right? A lot of people
Mhm.
fetishize cosplay and they're like, oh, it's all just
Oh yeah.
girls being sexy and whatever. But
Mm.
I'm like, no, it's just like, it's fun. You get to
Mm.
dress up. You get to be someone else for a day, and you get to like maybe do things that you wouldn't, like, something that's a little
Yeah,
bit
it's
tighter, or a little bit more revealing, which to be fair, that's because of the gaming industry, in my opinion.
yeah, no kidding.
Um, but
I
it's
was gonna
fun
say
just to dress up.
the the maid cafe, do you know anything about kind of how those like the history of how those started? Or because I guess for the listeners that are completely new to that world,
Oh.
maid cafes are like it's like a regular cafe, but all of the staff are dressed like it's like a French maid, right? That's the
Yeah, it's
outfit that
the
they're all
French
kind of
maid
wearing.
style. Yep.
Um and they kind of, I think, do they sort of speak in like keigo, like really fancy formal Japanese to you?
Yeah, so the customer is kind of the Japanese language is very hierarchical. So the keigo is like you slightly there's another one, but I can't remember. Been a long time since I actually
Yeah,
learned
yeah.
it. So there's different formalities of like whether or not the person you're speaking to is above you, and it's like the environment you're in, if the person is below you, but it's respectful, if you're on the same level. So there's all this sort of stuff. But
Mhm.
the maids treat the customer like kind of like royalty, but like, Sama, for example, like
Yeah,
honorable. You are
yeah,
I'm looking after you, so I'm gonna serve you, that kind of thing. Um, but it's very much about the customer and like making them feel good and looking
yeah,
after them. It is a strange thing, but they've cutesified it so well that it's like you can have a
yeah,
Polaroid taken, and like they'll draw cute things on the food, and they'll do a little dance for you. So it's like a mix of idol and
Yeah,
hospitality food service.
I never saw one that seemed super like sexual. I mean, I'm sure dudes will will find a way, but yeah, it's kind of evolved into its own. It's kind of taken on its own identity. I
Yeah.
don't know when, but
Actually, I
yeah, and
suppose the evolution, if you think about it, is you've got traditional Michael and geisha culture, right? Where it's
yeah,
servant and like serving like typical patriarchal sort of things, serving the men, the samurai, the tea and things like that. And there's a very certain culture and service around that. That moved into, I assume it's kind of an evolution of that, which would be like the girl bars, which is definitely more
snack
adult.
bars, whatever they call them. Yeah,
Yeah, it's more adult, but even then it's very hands off, where
Mm,
it's like, you're not allowed to touch the girls, it's just
no,
conversational based, and then I'm sure there's other ones that go beyond that. The Maid Cafe follows the same approach, but it's a little different again, where it's very much about like pop culture and anime and maid culture and
mm,
things like that. So they're all kind of connected and back to the historical context of like
that makes sense.
Michael and
Yeah,
Geisha. That's at
yeah,
least the way I see it, but I'm sure there's someone who's probably done like a YouTube video on the deep dive of
yeah.
it.
No, I think you're right there because people always point out the customer service in Japan is like immaculate, and you go, "Oh yeah, that
Oh
makes
yeah.
complete sense
The
as to
customer is
why."
never like wrong. Always right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, I had another sort of couple of follow-up questions about the when you do the cosplay cafe, because you're also quite in the cosplay community. Like, I'm not quite sure the dynamics of it and stuff, but are there like I don't want to say celebrities, but are there like figures that
Oh yeah.
people worldwide or nationwide would kind of recognize in
Yep,
the cosplay community,
definitely.
right? Where
Yeah, so Kai's done really well in building sort of their reputation in the community, and
Mhm,
they're really good at like building up young cosplayers. That's kind of their like whole thing is like
mhm.
building people up and getting them excited about it, and definitely bringing through the young people. But there are people not necessarily who are really good at cosplay, but are just really good people that people look up to, and like there's sometimes a crossover of like they're also really talented at making cosplay,
Yeah,
but then
yeah.
there's just people who like you can buy cosplay too. That's also fine, but
Mhm.
they're just people that exude like community, I guess, and they
Right,
help
yeah.
foster that community and keep things in check, which is pretty cool.
That
And
is
there are
good,
some like
yeah.
OGs as well, which is always fun to see them around. You're like, oh my
Yeah.
god, they don't necessarily cosplay anymore, but
Yeah.
they're kind of like celebrities too.
Oh, that's funny. I always remember for years there was one guy who would at the Armageddon cons they would do a like a Kamehameha competition, and every year
Yes.
he would like dress as Ryu from Street Fighter, and it would be like no contest how much better he was than everyone else. Like he just had this like
Yeah.
booming voice, and like I have to assume he did some kind of practice leading up to it. Like this was his kind of moment, and yeah, I have no idea who he is, who he was. I have to assume he was someone in the cosplay community, and I don't, I don't know if he's hung his jersey from the rafters or not. But yeah, no, that was always a highlight seeing that. I just remembered one of the weirdest experiences I saw at one of the Christchurch Armageddons was during that contest. A guy just started like peeing on the stage, and the
What?
host the host guy showed remarkable restraint, and like he sort of just kicked him in the backside and then like grabbed him by the scruff of the neck and sort of ushered him off the stage. But I just remember thinking like,
Whoa.
man, that like I don't know if I would have been that restrained if someone started doing that.
That is nuts. I've never heard that story.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully this was when I was in high school, so this is probably 20 years ago now, but or 15, 20 years ago. The guy was definitely drunk. I mean, I saw him
Oh.
sort of getting, they like detained him or whatever afterwards, and he was like swaying around and stuff. But man, what what goes through someone's head where they think, oh, it's going to be a good idea. It's really going to impress people. As if I completely
Yeah.
hijack.
It doesn't
Yeah,
help with our reputation either, us being nerds and cosplayers, as we already think that we're pretty weird, but
I would say this guy, for anyone listening that's concerned, this is an isolated incident. I've not seen it since.
yeah.
And this dude was definitely not a nerd. He just seemed like a lad who probably him and his friends got drunk and went, "Oh, let's go to the Armageddon," and then this dude was like, "Here comes my 15 minutes of fame."
Here's my moment. I'm gonna be
Yeah.
the guy who peed on stage at the Kamehameha.
Yeah. So yeah, that was an odd tangent. Sorry. Let's.
Hey, that's
so
important
we-
for listeners to understand.
the best of both worlds, and you're not going to see any nonsense like that at the Kowhai Fan Fest, because I will.
Oh, we bloody hope not.
Don't worry, I'll powerbomb someone if they do that. Because I look like Kevin Owens. I don't know if you watch wrestling or not, but that would have been any wrestling fans would have been like, yeah, that's a good
There's
reference.
definitely a wrestling fan crossover with the cosplay community. So
Huge crossover, yeah. For Armageddon, for years they used to do pro wrestling there, which was always fun. That was my first experience
Yeah.
of seeing New Zealand pro wrestling. So yeah, pretty
Yeah.
cool. I guess before we go into the question, I've got my sort of rapid fire questions for the end of it. But is there anything else you just like want to get out there about the Kowhai Fan Fest, about yourself? You're a streamer as well.
Yeah. So I'm a bit of a
anything,
jack of all trades, actually.
Mhm.
So obviously my background is like design and marketing, but I can kind of do pretty much everything, and that's why Kowhai is great, because I get to do video and a bunch of other stuff too. But I guess I'm just a creative all round, which is fun. Keeps me
yeah.
keeps me young at heart. But yeah, I've recently got back into streaming and YouTube and stuff, but not out of like, I used to do YouTube stuff a long time ago and kind of got into the vlogging scene. But it's funny, this time around it's just sort of happened to me as opposed to intentionally doing it. Like I
Mhm.
just like, I wanted to play more games, so I've got a friend who streams, so I tagged along to that, and it's just easy to port it over to YouTube. So yeah, I guess I'm online, but in different ways now. It's cool.
No, that's great. Well, let's just do these questions, and then we'll get some plugs in at the end, and then I think that'll be the interview. So I've got these questions that I've sort of sourced from various bits and pieces, but I just call them good ass questions. So first question: what was the last thing you really laughed hard at?
So one of the other things that I do, I have started doing a podcast with Big Hairy News, which is some guys based out in Dunedin.
yeah.
I have been making like a highlight reel for them
cool.
for a Friday show, and I took some of the best clips from maybe 2 weeks ago, and me and my co-hosts were just like, I've seen it multiple times editing it, right? But even like watching it, I was pissing my pants because it's so funny, because it's all out of context. But it's one of the guys on there is a comedian himself, and
Oh, who's the
he
comedian?
not only I don't know his name. He's known as Chewy, but I don't actually know
Yeah, okay.
his. You know Chewy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
not personally, but I know his brother very well. I knew his brother for a bit. His brother used to do stand up here.
yeah.
I think I haven't seen him for a few years, but yes, I know a lot of people that are very good friends with Chewy. So shout out to
he's
Chewy. I don't think he'll be listening, but shout out.
Oh, you never know. He's a
Never
pretty cool
know.
guy, but he mixes his comedy into his news rants or his political
Oh,
rants.
cool.
I guess is
Yeah.
probably more. So taking him out of context is super easy, and it's also just a lot of fun because you kind of make like a 2-minute highlight reel of just some like banger moments. So
Yeah.
that's probably
Wonderful.
the thing that just every week I laugh my socks off. So it's
Fantastic.
good fun.
Okay, another question here. If you could ask anybody from history a question and they had to answer honestly, who and what would you ask?
Oh my god, I never thought about that.
Yeah, there's some deep cuts in here. Hey,
From history.
by that I
I'm not
mean
a
just any
history. I'm
any
not
kind
really
of
a
history.
history nerd, but
I mean any
um,
figure really, even someone that's alive today if you want.
I honestly don't know.
Okay, we can always
Um,
pass. You can always say I don't have an answer to these. That's totally
I mean,
fine.
there is a guy who's I don't want to say he's on his deathbed.
Right.
He is a neuroscientist who's like the father in one of the mental health fields, but he does a YouTube channel now that he's retired, and he just sort of throws out the most recent research. And I think I would chat to him and just be like, "You're a fascinating dude. Can you tell me
Yeah.
everything you know?" So it never gets lost. Yeah.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Do you have a motto?
Yeah, I've got multiple. These are going to sound really strange out of context, but the world revolves around me. Everything is inevitable. good is the enemy of perfect, and done is better than perfect.
Nice. I
Yeah.
very much agree with those last two. And doing the podcast has been a great way to actually utilize the last ones of just get it out there. Good.
Yeah.
Fine is just fine. Next question: do you think you'd survive a zombie apocalypse?
Well, actually, in the first year of uni, there was a zombie run. I
Ah,
think it was only ever run once, but it was you either signed up to be a civilian or you got to
mhm,
sign up to be a zombie. And you had multiple objectives around the city to get to within
yeah.
like a 2 to 3 hour limit.
Uh-huh.
You could take any means you wanted to get around the city, but you had to be at a bar in town by a certain time. And it was a bit of a free for all where we were going through like people's properties and back fences and stuff, which is definitely a big no no,
Uh-huh.
just to avoid getting caught. And I just remember walking around like God knows where in the middle of town and going through like cemeteries and stuff with our friends
Wow.
trying to avoid all these zombies. But I think I'd be okay.
Yeah.
I can't run very fast though, so I think I'm gonna have to rely on weapons over
Yeah.
agility.
Well, it sounds like you've got some
But
real experience. Most people just say no flat out, but you actually had a response to that, so well done.
Maybe.
Yeah. Sounds promising to me. Do you have a skill that people would be surprised to learn that you have?
um.
I guess you have a lot, but
Oh
anything.
yeah. Yeah. Probably. Not a lot of people know that I can sing because I don't really sing
Nice.
for people. It's kind of embarrassing. But the other one that most people do know because I tell them, but new people, I have been a figure skater since I was like 13. Well, I say figure
Hell
skater.
yeah.
I've been figure skating.
Yeah.
I've done the odd comp in here, but
Hell
yeah.
yeah. Awesome. Do you have a favorite Wikipedia rabbit hole?
No, unless maybe like actors, and
Yeah.
especially ones that I'm like, I'm sure I've heard this person's voice or I've seen this
Mhm.
thing before, and then I go into like a big IMDb, and then I eventually end up at their wiki, and I'm like, what was their life like? Are they an asshole?
Wonderful.
What's their controversies?
You always scroll to the controversies, personal life
Yeah,
and controversies.
yeah.
Do you have a favorite quote?
Quote. Not specifically someone that I could be like, this
Mm.
person said this.
Yeah,
No, I'm sure one of my my little mantras or sayings is probably a quote
that's
somewhere.
true. Yeah, no
Yeah, no
worries.
one. I don't really do the whole quote thing. I probably should
Mm.
start quoting people.
Posting
Not one
some
on my
on
wall.
Instagram. What's one food from history you'd like to go back in time and try?
Food that I'd like to go back and try. What one you can't access now?
Maybe it's still around. Like I've had many different. Like one person said there were these giant. Apparently, New York used to be able to get these giant oysters, like span of your hand kind of thing, and they wanted to go back and try that. Someone else said they wanted to go back and try. It was like the unmixed wine that the Romans used to drink.
Oh, I
That
mean,
kind of thing.
probably the only thing I can think of that you can't access is mammoths and moas.
Oh yeah,
Um,
the Mo
so
would
I
be
don't know.
interesting. Yeah.
Mo would be interesting. Yeah.
Let's find out why. Find out if it was overhyped or Imagine doing like a
Well,
YouTube.
obviously it was pretty good because they made them go
Yeah.
extinct. So,
What's up, YouTubers? Today we're going to find out if Moa is overrated.
what would it taste like?
Yeah, because they're massive, aren't they? They were 6, 7 feet tall, weren't they?
They're basically like a Kiwi ostrich, right?
Yeah.
Mixed
So
with a
I should actually
New
context because
Zealand.
we do have some foreign and overseas listeners. So a Moa is
Emus?
like a
Emus? Ostrich?
picture like a very big with kind of shaggy. I think they allegedly had shaggy kind of feathers on them, didn't they?
Like a Kiwi kind of
Yeah,
harsh, as
probably.
opposed to like less like bird, but more like Kiwi, which is kind of, I don't
And
know,
they're
like really slinky cat, like that kind of rough fur?
yeah,
Or like dog fur, kind of?
yeah, they're like
I
a
imagine.
prehistoric bird that were extinct, and every few years you hear someone in the news be like, "I think I've seen one," and then there's a few minor news stories about it, but I think it's
Yeah.
generally accepted that they're extinct.
They're
Um,
gone, sadly.
yeah, yeah. So then next one, do you have a sick day ritual?
I wake up and say, nah. And I stay in bed. I cuddle my cats. I take a very, very slow approach to the day. I try to have a shower at some point during the day, and enjoy some sunshine,
Mm,
and sleep. I think that's probably it.
that's good. Very
Yeah.
measured response there.
Sleep off either the pain or the sadness.
Well,
or
that's the cool.
both, you know.
That's the name of this episode. Sleep away the pain and sadness with
Yeah.
with Ems from Kowhai
With
Fan
Emma.
Fest.
Nothing to do
Um,
with cosplay.
No, well, pain is universal. Do you have a comfort movie?
I'm not someone who rewatches stuff. Like
Oh,
if I stop a series halfway through, I might like flick through things pretty like quickly. But
yeah.
I'm not someone who will rewatch something. If I'm in a certain mood or I'm like I just need to pick me up, I will watch like a teen-based rom-com.
Oh yeah, yep. So something like High School Musical or
No, oh god, no.
no?
No, it'd be something on Netflix that's a bit more recent. So it's like
Ah, yes.
I don't know. There's probably a ton of them
Yeah.
out there.
No, I'm with you. No
Yeah.
worries. Okay, next question. Do you know what a struggle meal is?
And when you can't be fucked cooking?
Yeah, that or when it's payday in a couple of days and you think, it's
You can get away with
generally
spending a bit extra.
no. When you don't, it's when you don't have money and it's
Oh,
like,
when you don't have money, right?
yeah. Do you have a favorite struggle meal? Like one that even if you do have money, you will sometimes go back and still have?
Oh, mine is mac and cheese. We always have at least pasta, cheese, and milk and flour, and that's all you need.
Yeah. So you make it yourself as well. That's impressive.
Oh yeah, like I've got a recipe down pat. It's the perfect recipe.
Wonderful.
I've been
Um,
perfecting it over my lifetime.
yeah, hell yeah. Does anything live rent free inside your head?
My head.
Oh,
My
are
head
you?
lives like I'm very introspective. So like I'm
Mm,
constantly analyzing myself or my the way I function. So it can
do you
live
str-
rent free in there.
do you struggle to sleep because your mind doesn't shut down?
Sometimes if I don't release my creative energy, then like things will sit in my brain and we're like, I could make this, I could do this,
Mm,
this could be fun.
yeah.
Um, but
There's nothing.
yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing like that. Just before you're going to bed, suddenly you have this surge of creative energy, and you're like, "What?
Yes.
Where was this throughout the day?"
But that's
Um,
sometimes the best thing because I'll be struggling on a project and then something will click and I'm like, oh, I could have just
yeah,
done this from the beginning. But I'm
yeah.
really bad at but I'm already in bed. So I'm just going to have to like write it down.
Wait till tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently, I've read somewhere that that's the best way to write like a novel is to stop when you already know what's going to happen next. That way, you'll be kind of
Huh.
like raring to go the next day. Whereas if you
Ah.
stop when you don't know what's going to happen next, apparently it can be hard to get going again. So yeah,
Oh, see,
I don't
I'm
have
one of
that
those people
idea.
that likes to fester on an idea. Like especially if I'm like, there is a perfect solution to this creative whatever problem, I'll fester on it and I'll just like consume more and more and more knowledge until something goes, oh, that's the connection. That's it. That's
Yeah,
the thing. Whereas if I'm like, I'm just gonna, it depends on the project though. Sometimes I'm like, I've got time to like get right to the crunch time.
yeah,
And usually that's when my best work comes is like, well, one crunch time, but two, the idea is like perfect.
I'm with
So.
you. Two questions left. Do you have a favorite meme?
No, I'm not really a meme person.
You're not a meme person? Okay.
No, I'm weird like that. I'm not into the memes. I mean, I appreciate the memes. I don't really have a meme that I'm.
Yeah, you don't
I
make
like
it a
the
part of
old
your
comic.
personality.
Yeah, I like the old comic every now and then.
Nice. Okay,
Yeah.
Lynn, last question. What are you watching or listening or reading, etc. at the moment?
Oh, actually, I am. Got my desk. If I can just pull out this book that I'm reading.
Some nice
So
ASMR for the listeners.
yeah, sorry, just rustling of papers and things.
No, I love it.
This, if you're interested, that's what it looks like.
Rewire.
Rewire by a neuroscientist called I think she's neuroscience. She touches brains as far as I understand. She's that kind of brain scientist. She dissects brains and things.
I'm with you.
Nicole Vignola, I think she's possibly Spanish,
Sorry, that got me.
and
Oh dear.
yeah, she's it's about like rewiring the neurons. It's very science based. I love that kind of mental health stuff where it's like, here's the science of how your brain works. And then you try the
True.
techniques and you're like, now I know how my brain works and it's working. So
Wonderful.
that's cool.
Well, man, that has been my list of good ass questions. Let's get some
Awesome.
plugs in before we let you get back to your life. So, Kowhai Fan Fest 2025. I've got the date in front of me. It's the 18th of January 2025, and it
Sure
is going to
is.
be. Is it Te Hapua? Is that what you said the place is called?
I will just double triple check, but it's the Hallsville City Library.
Hallsville City
Which,
Library. Okay.
well, like Council City Library, right?
Yep. I'm sure the people that are going to come to it will know either what that is or how to find it. Does it cost
Hallsville?
to? Yeah. Does it cost for a ticket?
Yes, Te Hapua. It's I think don't quote me. It's either $10 or $15, and you can
Okay,
buy
so yeah, you
online
can-
or at the door. So it should be pretty accessible.
Awesome. Assuming I get accepted, I assume I will because I got a message from I think Kai reminding me
Right.
to apply to do the stand up there. So I think they're pretty keen to to get that up there. So yeah, I'm going to be doing some very niche anime and pop culture jokes for about 5 minutes. I
Nice.
think we'll try. Social media for you, your Instagram handle. I was just looking at it before. What was your Instagram handle again? Sorry.
It should be I am pretty awesome, all one word with an underscore at the end, which is kind of a name that's stuck with me for a long time.
Brilliant.
And that's probably my visual stuff. Otherwise, if you want to see me actually doing stuff online these days, it's pretty awesome gaming, both on Twitch and YouTube.
Perfect. I will chuck all of those links in the show notes. I'll chuck a link to the Kowhai Fan Fest website as well. Anything else you want to plug before we wrap it up?
Fridays, I'm also doing the Friday night show for BHN, Big Hairy News on YouTube live, and also there'll be like a recast or whatever. So if you want to see me talking news and politics and hopefully not commiserating the election.
Oh god, yeah, we're recording this like the day after that result, which that was certainly a result.
Yeah.
Um,
What a time to be alive.
oh dear me. Great. Well, so I'll see if I can find a link to that and chuck that in the show notes as well. But yeah, thank you for joining me. It's been great to chat to you. I assume will we run into each other at the actual fest in January?
Yeah. I'll be there with my camera running around like a madman. So
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure I come and say hello. Do you think you'll be in cosplay?
Well, we probably all should be if we're running the event, because otherwise it's a little bit
I think I'm gonna have to
I
find
don't know.
a character to do or something for myself. I don't quite know
It
what.
doesn't have to be. I think you could do like you could, I don't know, reference things with a cheap
True,
costume. That's
yeah.
what I did last time. I just put my partner's clothes on and walked around wearing something I definitely wouldn't usually wear, and just said, I'm cosplaying as my partner, because
Nice.
running a con and wearing cosplay do not mix.
Yeah, I can definitely. I did a Halloween costume this year, which was very basic because I was also running a show, so it was like I cannot be like dying, sweating, and
Yeah.
coordinating all this. So yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. Well, thank you
Wigs are
so
the
much for
worst.
joining me. Yeah, yeah. Thanks for joining me. Hope you have a wonderful sort of rest of your year, and then we'll see you in a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Ruddle Me This. Don't forget to hit subscribe and leave me a review on your favorite podcast platform. You can find me on social media at Taylor Ruddle Comedy on all the major platforms. You can also join patreon.com/Taylor Ruddle Comedy for free, which gets you access to all sorts of extras and behind the scenes content, as well as allows you to communicate directly with me and let me know what you think of the show. Tune in again next Monday for another episode of Ruddle Me This, and until then, Ruddler out.
This has been a Tape Deck Media production. Thank you for listening.
Hey Ruddlers, I joined a group of podcasters that we are calling the Trailer Alliance, a group of podcasters that share each other's trailers at the end of the episodes and generally support each other. So at the end of each episode for the next few weeks, I'm going to be playing a trailer of one of the members of the Trailer Alliance. And here's one of them now. I hope you like it.
Top of the day, everyone. I'm Nisha.
And I'm Buddha Badass.
And we're the hosts of Hot Garbage True Crime Edition. Do you guys like true crime?
I really don't. I feel like you force me on this show every freaking time I come here.
Do you guys enjoy listening to victims and murderers and grotesque stuff?
People that are sick in the freaking head. That's who likes it. That's who likes it.
Well, if you like that kind of stuff, then you should totally check us out. I mean, every single Thursday, we drop the most hottest cases, and we have fun while doing it.
You drop the most hottest cases? You drop murder and death. Kill.
How many people can actually say that they have fun while listening to a true crime podcast? And I feel like that's what we do here.
So you're just not going to listen to me now? I'm just going to say this and you're not going to listen to me?
And you know what? Our listeners are not just our listeners, but they're our friends and our trash pandas. We love you guys.
They're a lot, and I will agree to that part, but I'm still just mad at you for just not talking to me. They're paying you this well to say all this.
So check out Hot Garbage on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Check us out every single Thursday. A new episode drops.
I officially hate this commercial. On some real.